into it. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Rani. It's all yours.
Okay. So good morning to you all. And in our Gatha classes, today we are going to start the second Ha of the Ha or chapter of Gatha Aunavaiti, that is Yasna 29. I promise you this chapter is going to be much more interesting in the sense that it is one of the rare Ha's which has a narrative structure. It reads like a storyline, unlike most other Ha's where there is no narrative structure. There are teachings, perhaps most of them which may not be connected always. But Yasna 29 is one such Ha, one such chapter where the narrative is there from the beginning to an end. It reads like a story. Every stanza is connected. And many scholars regard it as the first Ha of the Aunavaiti Gatha rather than the second one. And the reason is very clear that it talks about the divine appointment of the prophet. As we saw, Yasna 28 talks about Zarathustra, and he also talks about his disciples Vishtaspa and Prashostra in Yasna 28. So that was at an advanced stage when he was already a prophet in a way. But 29, most of it is about how Zarathustra was chosen as the prophet. And that's why it is in a way the very beginning of it all. So every stanza is very interesting because each stanza leads to another. Kerman, will you please allow me to share the screen?
Okay, all right. Let me try that. I think you're logged on with NAMC. You're logged on with the thing.
Okay, done. No, I
Done?
think
Okay.
I directly logged on from your email. That's why.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. No problem. All yours.
Yeah. Another thing that this chapter tells us is many people say that Zarathustra was a random philosopher. But this chapter shows without any doubt that a lot of thought went into the selection of the soul of Prophet Zarathustra. It was not a random choice. He was not a random person who just was a very good thinker and who meditated and became a prophet. So his divine choice, what we call the divine choice of the prophet, the divine selection of the prophet is very evident in this chapter. And that's why it is very essential for us. So we start with the first stanza, which is the lament of Mother Earth to Aura Mazda, to send the savior. And that's how the story starts. Ama Eshemo Hazasharemo Aushuya Daresha Tevisha Noitmoi Vasta Shmatanyo Athamoi Sasta Bohu Astriya. So this stanza tells us that unto you, that is unto Aura Mazda, the soul of the earth, lamented that why have you created me? Why did you make me? Because there are so many negativities which are overpowering me. Wrath, savagery, audacity, brute force, all these are oppressing me. And a very pertinent line, Noitmoi Vasta Shmat Anyo. What Mother Earth is saying is, I have got no protector other than you. You are my only recourse. So do you therefore provide me with a Vahu Vastraya? Vahu Vastraya means a good shepherd. Now, you know, even in Christianity, the term shepherd is used for the prophet. So the word that is Mother Earth uses for a savior is Vastraya. That is one who is a shepherd. Now, Ahura Mazda hears the prayer of Mother Earth. And then what does he do? Ada tasha geus peresa tashen kata toi kavoy ratush yatim data shayanto ada vastra godayo thwaksho kem hoy ushta aurem ye dregoy dibish eshemem vadayoy. So Ahura Mazda being Ahura Mazda, he always confers with his Amesha husbands. So here he confers with Asha. Now why with Asha? Because Asha is a divine plan of God. So Ahura Mazda is asking Asha whether in our plan, do you see anybody like that? So he is asking, have you a leader for the earth who shall provide her protection so that she can give sustenance to the people? O Ahura, who will give her happiness? Who will drive away violence of the wrathful people? Now, for the first time over here, in this chapter, the word Ratush is used. Now, the word Ratu in Avastha is used in several different ways and forms. In our Yatha Ahu Vairya also, we have the word Ratush. Yatha Ahu Vairyo Atha Ratush. And the same word Ratush we come across over here. Different people translate the word Ratush differently. But the best way we can translate is a spiritual leader for the material world. That is what I understand Ratu as. A spiritual master, a spiritual lord for the material world. So, Ahura Mazda is asking Asha Vahishta whether in their plan, is there any such person who will be going to help Mother Earth, who will drive away the violence of the wrathful people, the evil people, the people who are not following the laws of Asha, who are not following the laws of Mazda, who are not the Aurat Keshis. So now let's see what Asha is saying. See how this narrative structure is going over here. So in the third stanza, now Asha is replying to Ahura Mazda. He says, I cannot find a helper that can keep harm away from the earth. The people do not know how to protect the righteous ones from the evil ones. So here you see the tussle between the Mazdi Yasnis and the Devi Yasnis which was going on in those times is evident over here. Among these people, that person is most powerful for whom I can come for help at call. Now, many a times in the Gathas, we see that some nugget of wisdom comes in between the narrative. And here comes a very important nugget of information. That among the people of the world, who is more powerful? The answer is that who has access to the spiritual world. That when we call out, the spiritual world responds. That person is the most powerful. And that is why in Avastha we have phrases like Jasame Avange Mazda. We discussed it last time also. Come to my help, O Mazda. So we have such phrases where we call out for help. And the person whose prayers are answered is considered as Hatam Vo Ojishto. Hatam means among the living ones. Among the existing ones, he is the most powerful. Aujishta is the superlative degree. Now, we come across a very important universal truth that Mazda has created the universe with a plan. And that plan is the best which ever was there or ever will be. So the plan of the universe that Ahura Mazda has made, Mazda Sakare Mairishto Yazi Vavarizoi Pairi Chitit. And Devaisha Mashyaisha means whether by demon or by men, irrespective whether we are talking of anything in the world, good power, bad power, good energy, evil energy, Ahura Mazda's plan is the best. And then once again comes a very important teaching. That is, Aura is the sole decider. Havo Vichiro Auro. This is one of the best quotable quotes from the Gathas. Havo Vichiro Auro Athane Angat Yathavo Vasat. Means Aura knows the best. Like many a times we say, can we ask things from God? And we generally say, yeah, you can ask things from God, but leave the final decision to Him. That actually is being told to us over here. That Aura is the sole decider. Havo Vichiro Aura. And may it be unto us as He wills. And there's a classic adage which goes, Thy will be done. And over here, will means the wish, and Thy means God. So generally, people say that after all our efforts, we have to leave the final verdict to God after our efforts, not without doing efforts. So that thing, Thy will be done, which is where you have full faith and confidence in God that whatever finally we will do, it will be for our good. It will be for my good and our good. That idea comes very clearly in this stanza, the fourth stanza, where we are told that we are all a part of a plan. So that's why let Mazda decide. Finally, of course, we have to do our best, but then Mazda will decide. Atva Ushtanaish Ovau, Zastais Frinemna Auraya, Me Urva Gevsha Azyao, At Mazdam Dvaidi Feresabio, Noit Erezizoi Fraziaitish, Noit Shuyante Dregosu Pairi. So here Zarathustra comes into picture for some time. And he says that I am doing prayer along with earth. That both of us will pray to Aura and we will urge Aura that at no time should good people be harmed. Like the request of Mother Earth initially was also that send a savior because good people are being harassed over here by evil and wicked people. So Zarathustra's problem was also that why are good people suffering? So that's why he said saying that even my prayer is the same, what Mother Earth did. And both of us are urging Aura Mazda that may there be no destruction for the right living person or the hardworking person, the diligent person, irrespective of whether they are living with good people or evil people. So here, all those who are good people should have take heart. All good people should take heart that there are divine forces which are there to help and protect them. Mother Earth is trying to help and protect them. Zarathustra and other divine beings are there to help and protect them. So whatever the conditions and circumstances of life, even if you are amongst the worst of the people, the most evil of the people, you should not worry. And that's where this the beautiful Gujarati saying comes, Ram rakhe tene kon chakhe. Means that whenever if God be with you, who be against you? That's another similar one. If God be with you, who can be against you? So that same thing is reflected over here in this last line of this stanza. Noit erezizoi fraziaitish, noit shuyante dregvasu pairi. In simple words, કોઈએ भी फिकर करवानी जरूर નથી अगर जो તમે righteous हो, अगर जो તમે hardworking हो, if you are righteous and if you are hardworking, you don't need to worry. So that is a very comforting thought that comes over here in the Gathas. Now, Aura Mazda, after hearing Gevshuran's prayer, after having conferred with the Ameshaspans, what does he say? Atte vochat auro mazdao, vidva vapush vyania, noit aiva ahu vishto, neida ratush ashachit hacha, adzitva shuyantecha vastryecha, thoresta tatasha. The first line tells us that Aura Mazda perceptively knows the prayers of Geu Shurvan or anybody for that matter. What does that mean? That Aura Mazda perceptively knows means it is once again a message to us that however you pray, in whatever manner you pray, if your prayers are devout and sincere, Aura Mazda will perceptively catch your prayers. So this is the message that this line tells us. And this is the message that now Aura Mazda is telling the Mother Earth that be patient, please. Because as of now, not a soul is known yet who could be the Ahu and the Ratu on account of righteousness. But Aura Mazda also tells Geu Shurvan, also tells the earth that I have made you for a purpose. I have made you so that you can help the cattle tenders and the cultivators. That are the good people who are helping the world. And that is why I will definitely do something to ease your problem. But as of now, please give me time. Even today we do this, no? If we don't have an immediate solution to a problem, we say, okay, I'll look into the matter and get back to you. So here in a way, Aura Mazda is telling Geu Shurvan that presently I don't know whether any Ahu or Ratu. Ahu is a material lord and Ratu is a spiritual lord. But both have to be lords on account of the righteousness. So as of now, I don't see anybody who can be of any help to you. Now, for some brief time, we will pause over here, have some discussions, if necessary, on the stanzas that we have discussed, and then again take up the second half of the chapter, Yasna 29.
Whoever has any questions, please unmute yourself and then just ask the questions. The floor is open.
I have a question. This is Pilsum.
Yes, please.
It looks like this is almost like an Abrahamic religion, that God is also the creator of good and evil. I thought in Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazda was all nothing but good comes from him. So he looks like he already, maybe he's even part of this evil that happens in this world. That's his plan. That's what is very confusing about this 29.
Pilsen, being aware of something does not mean you are part of something. Ahura Mazda, as we know him, is omniscient. He is all-knowing. Why do we call Ahura Mazda omniscient? Because he is all-knowing. Now, Ahura Mazda did create the universe. We know that Ahura Mazda is aware of everything. But we also know that Ahura Mazda has the tendency of always being good. Now, as I understand it, it is like this, that when Ahura Mazda was purely energy, at that time there was no evil, but everything was static. Then when Ahura Mazda decided to make things dynamic, put things into motion, he was aware of this thing, that this step of his, of making something which is static into dynamic, changing with something which is purely light and energy to something that are called creations, first the spiritual and the material. this process will have repercussions, and that repercussion will be is the coming of Angramain. Now, as we are told, since Ahura Mazda is all good, he did not himself destroy this negativity which emerged, but he devised the earth. Sorry, he devised the creations, first the spiritual creations and then the material creations, in order to trap Angramain. So his purpose is fully served over here, if you can see it. His original purpose was from a static creation to make a dynamic creation, which he achieved. Being all-knowing, he was aware that negativity would come out of it. Being all good, he did not want to directly destroy it. So in his plan of things, he had already everything in place. And so in a way, we are his agents to fulfill that purpose and once again bring back what was the original idea of Ahura Mazda, that there will be activity, there will be dynamism without evil, without negativity. And that stage is called the stage after Frashogar. So you understand, this is a whole scheme of things. So I don't think anywhere over here, just because Ahura Mazda is aware of there being evil, does it mean that he is party to it?
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Don't we say that Ahura Mazda is all-knowing? Then
Of
how
course.
did he not know about the Ahu and the Ratu? And he's going to look for it.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah, Faribos, I would take it as a poetic license. I would take it not literally because, of course, as you rightly point out, Ahura Mazda is omniscient. He would know everything. So he did not know that Zarathustra is going to come. But here, in a poetic way, we are being shown that he confers and then comes to this thing. In a way, it is a lesson to people, a poetic lesson to people, that even if you are the most powerful, it is very necessary to confer with your people before coming to a conclusion. So what you are saying is 100% correct, that doubt will come to the mind. That did God not know that Zarathustra had to go? Of course, he must be aware, but I think there's a poetic way of putting a teaching that was in a way a form of teaching.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I have one question. My name is Jamshed. Can you elaborate more on Ahu and Ratush? So Ahura, when you say Lord of the material world, is it signifying an individual or some divine thing? So when you say Ahura Mazda, is that also referring to Ahu in the same context?
Yeah. See, the word Ahu in Avastan is used in many different ways. Ahu means life, existence, Lord, Master. The word Ahu, not Ahura. I'm not coming to. I'll come to Ahura. But the word Ahu has got several significances, and it comes from the Avastan Indo-Aryan root "ah" to be, to exist. In Sanskrit, it is as, astitva, existence. Now, Ahu is sometimes explained as the divine being, because which is God at the time of the creation, divine being at the time of the creation, and Ra is the noun suffix added to Ahura. So originally the name of God among the Mazdayasnis was only Mazda. Ahura was not the name of a god. Ahura was a title which means a lord. And that word Ahura as a lord was used for spiritual beings also and material things also. So Ahura is a word which can be used in, and in fact in Avastha the word Ahura is used even in plural. Ahuraongo means many Ahuras. So the word aura is used as a common noun. But when it is used for Mazda, becomes a title of Mazda. So we generally translate it as Lord Wisdom or Lord of Wisdom. So later on, these two words became fused and became Hormuzd. Aura and Mazda became Hormuzd. Now your question is about Ahu and Ratu. So there are two main explanations of these words. Ahu in one form is explained as the divine being who created the creations, created the spiritual creations, created the material creations. So in a way, it is the original Godhead, the original power of creation. And Ratu is his representative on earth. That is one way in which scholars see it. Another way in which the scholars see this two combination of Ahu and Ratu, and at many places in the Avastha, these two come together, is that Ahu is the king, the material master of the earth or the empire, and Ratu is either Prophet Zarathustra, he was the first Ratu, and then any other spiritual teacher, Lord, Master can also be called a Ratu. Of course, the word Ratu has another meaning in Avastha, that is divine beings who specially preside over seasons and time. So Ratu has several different meanings. So when we say Ahu as a lord of the material world, a king, you should know that before Prophet Zarathustra came about, the king was also the spiritual lord. The material lord and the spiritual lord was in one. So our kings like Jamshed and Faridun and Hosham, they are called Soshians. Soshians means benefactors or helpers of mankind. So the spiritual and material power was into one. After Prophet Zarathustra, it became divided into the temporal and the spiritual. So there can be several different interpretations of these two terms, but to sum it up, one interpretation of Ahu and Ratu is the spiritual Godhead and his material representative of the spiritual Godhead. That would make it Aura Mazda and Zarathustra. And the other understanding of Ahu and Ratu is the master of the material world or a powerful king. And Ratu means any teacher, any spiritual head of a people or a place can be called Ratu. So it is open to interpretation by the translators what meaning they would take of these terms. So that's why translating Avastha and especially the Gathas is a difficult thing, because there are such technical words with multiple meanings and interpretations. But as I say, we should see it from the point of view of that, not that this is right and this is wrong, but two different interpretations of a same, as far as they are along with the lines of the teachings of the religion.
Thank you. So when you say Yatha Ahu, where your Atharatush, we are referring to like a spiritual person is as powerful as a king or a...
Yes, as you know, there are dozens of interpretations of Yatha Ahu. Okay, but how I see it, how I understand it, and the way it makes the most meaning to me is this. I'm not saying this is the only interpretation, but what makes the most meaning to me is that Yatha means just as, Ahu means the spiritual Godhead, is Vairyo means he is ruler at will, means God is a ruler at will. He has got all the will that he has. Atha Ratush means so can a spiritual adept, a spiritual person, a Ratu, who is a spiritual Lord Master, he can also have that power that Ahu has been having, that is being at will. But how? Only on one condition, Ashat Chit Hacha. He has to follow the laws of Asha and the related spiritual laws. if a Ratu follows the laws of Asha and the related laws, then he will get the Vairya, that is the power, the strength of Ahu. That is my understanding of the first line of Yatha Veda. Of course, it may differ from other interpretations.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Burzin.
Yeah, Burzin.
What we understand is at the time of the ancient, there was only one group of people divided into two. One believed in Mazdayashni, believing in one God. One believed in Devayashni. Is it the Devayashni of the Rigvedic times what we are thinking about, or it was just very different?
The simple understanding of Devyasni is worshipping many things as God. In a very simple, is a very simple interpretation. And Mazda Yasni means which accepts and believes in only one supreme power in the universe.
Yeah.
So Devyasni would even consider a stone as powerful as God, even consider a mountain as powerful as God, even consider a cow as powerful as God. So that is something which is called Devyasni, means something which gives power of God to everything. Okay, and that was considered wrong and bad, and that's why. And what you call Rigvedic is that the Rigveda had many devs. You are right. And the Proto-Aryans, they had many devs, means divine beings in their terms. So they used to give them equal power in a way and worship all of them as godheads. So that's why they were called Devyasnis.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, may we proceed now?
Yeah, Ramya, go ahead.
Now here we are told about something else. Tem azutosh auro matrem tashat asa hajoso mazdao gavoishvidem cha avo urushe vyos pento sasmiya kaste vahumananga ye idayat e ava marete vyo. Now here we are being told a very powerful truth that aura for aura means aura and Mazda are more or less the same in Gathas, the god. So aura for prosperity formed matra in harmony with Asha. Now what is this trying to tell us? Tem azutosh auro matrem tashat. Matrem tashat means God. We say no that our words of prayers are divine words. This is being told to us over here. That he formed the mantra in harmony with Asha. And remember, Asha is the divine being who looks after the divine plan. And why did he create mantra in harmony with Asha? So that the people will become happy and prosperous. So the purpose of saying the mantras, of chanting the mantras, is that it is a part of the divine plan by which, by chanting the mantras, you can get prosperity, happiness, and all the other positive things. So I think a very important spiritual truth is coming out over here. The aura for prosperity formed mantra, and I have used the word mantra as mantra only over here. Some people may translate it as prayer, some people may translate it as something else, but I have kept it as a proper noun because we believe in mantra as a proper noun. So for prosperity, he formed mantra in harmony with Asha. Beneficent Mazda created the holy word for the sincere ones who want to benefit the earth. So now once again we are told that prayers will help the Mother Earth in this case and other things also. So Mazda is called beneficent. He is helpful. and he created the holy word. This is Matra, so that it would benefit the earth. You remember, we have a word called Matra Spenta. In the Avastha, there is a yazad called Mino Marespan yazad. The 29th roj of the Zoroastrian calendar is called Mino Marespan. And the Avastan form of Marespan is Matra Spenta. And Matra Spenta means beneficent Matra. Means Matra which when recited brings about prosperity, brings about benefit. And we all know that Marespan, Mino Marespan, is the divine being who presides over the sacred words of prayer, what we generally refer to as the Matravani. So, Beneficent Mazda created the holy word for the good people, the sincere people who want to benefit the earth. Now, Ahura Mazda is in a way asking Vahumana. This is a bit of, in a way you can say a dramatization. That, oh Vahumana, do you have anybody who shall nourish these two? That is Matra and Spenta. That is the good word and benefit people. Now once again see the idea. Why is Prophet Zarathustra, why is this person who is to be sent? What will be his mission? So his mission will be that he will give power to the mantra, power to the prayers. Mind you, mantra in some form or the other were already there before Zarathustra. Zarathustra did not create all the mantras. There were some mantras even before it. So, he says, anybody who shall nourish this to means matra ne bhi strength upse, prayers ne bhi strength upse, and at the same time benefit bhi thase. So because Vahumana is the divine consciousness, the divine mind, the mind of the creation. So it is supposed to know everything. So then, as I said once again, it's not that Ahura Mazda doesn't know, but in a way he is referring it to Vahumana. Here I think we are being shown that this whole creation was created by Ahura Mazda. It was Ahura Mazda's idea. Vahumana is his thought and Ashavahishta is his action. Ashavahishta is his plan. So these three together also made Zarathustra. These three together made the creations, and these three together also gave Zarathustra to the world. And now this is a beautiful stanza which shows that Zarathustra is unique. There is nobody like Zarathustra. So he's saying, Emmo ida visto yene evo sasna gushta. Zarathustros pitamo. Vone mazda vashti ashaicha. Chare karetra sravayange yathoi hudemem dyai vakedriya. Now this is Vahumana again to Ahura Mazda. That he says that in my divine consciousness, there is only one soul. This one alone. And he is Zarathustra's Pitama. And he already, who has heard our commandments. Now see, once again, when we discuss about whether he was already a part of the divine plan or not, whether Ahura Mazda was already aware of him or not, here there is a hint to us that Zarathustra's Pitama, even before Vahumana identifies him, he's saying he has already heard our commandments. He already knows about his mission. He is already aware of his selection in a way. And then we are told, oh Mazda, he wishes to sing praises for us and for Asha. That is, this soul, this unique soul, it knows what is in store for him in a way, and it wants to go and sing praises. Because after coming to the material world, in a way, Zarathustra had to reinvent himself. As we know, once a spirit comes to the material world, that spirit, even if it is of Zarathustra, is more or less bound by the rules of the material world. because nobody, not even Ahura Mazda, wants to break those rules. So here we are told that Zarathustra, when he reinvents himself, when he finds all the answers once again, in that process he will sing praises for us. And in last chapter, in Yasna 28, we have already seen how much Zarathustra is eager to please and praise Ahura Mazda, Vahumana, Asha, Kshatra, Spenta, Armeti, all the divine beings. How keen he is to show his devotion to them. So now even the divine beings are keen to send Zarathustra. So they are saying, let us grant him sweetness of speech. That is, there will be some powers he'll be requiring in the material world. One is the power of speech, a speech which is effective, a speech which is sweet and at the same time firm. So let us give him those powers which he will require in the material world. So here is how on one side we are seeing that they are having a conference, but on the other end we are being shown that they are already convinced that this is the soul and we are going to send him. And they know that once he goes there, we'll have to give him something special to fulfill his mission. Even though he is our chosen one, we will have to give him something. But now, as usually happens in a story, Mother Earth is not happy with the decision. Acha geu surva rosta ye anesham shan mene rade. Vachim nere sashuraya ye ma vasemi isha shatre. Kada yava vo angad ye hoy dadat zastavatavo. So when the divine council told the earth that they have zeroed in on Zarathustra's Pitama's soul to come down to the earth as her savior, she is saying that my problem is that there are very strong, powerful, evil people over here. So I want a person who has the brawn, who has the strength, who has the power to quash them. She was skeptical whether a spiritual person, a person with spiritual power, would be able to overpower all these legions of powerful people who are evil. So she in a way even says that Zarathustra would be a weak man. She says, how will such a weak man overpower a strong man? And she wants Isha Shatrem. Isha Shatrem means a king, a powerful ruler. So she says, I want a king, a prince to save me. So who will come, who will give me help with his hands? So here, Geush Urvan is not very happy with the decision of the divine cabinet, of the divine council. Yuzem Aibio Aura Ogo Data Asha Shatrimcha. Yat Hushitish Ramam Chada. Azemchit Aya Mazda Twam Mengi Paurvin Vede. Now, when Mother Earth replies this, then once again the divine cabinet meets and they say that our selection is final. Zarathustra is our final selection. But let us give him all the strength and the power so that he will be able to succeed even the most powerful of the people on the earth. Let us send him with all such powers. And once he succeeds, what will he be able to give the people? He will be able to give the people the power to be righteous and holy, whereby they will achieve happy residence. Happy residence over here means heaven, and they will attain peace. So these are the two gifts which are paramount for the people of the world, and they are now deciding that they will give Zarathustra those powers by the virtue of which he will succeed on earth. He now cannot fail because now They have to prove to the Mother Earth that what she requires is a spiritual savior and not a material king, because the powers that be are spiritual ones, more or less. The evils that are there, they'll be overpowered by spiritual power and not alone by physical power. So now this process starts. Kuda Hashem Vaucha Mano Kshatrim Cha Atma Masha Izem Mazda Frakšnene Mazoi Magai Apaiti Zanata Aurani Navo Avare Emma Ratosh Yushma Vatam. Now, this is the last concluding stanza of the chapter. Here, the scene is once again totally changing. Here, Zarathustra is being already shown as a person on mission. Here, he is conferring with the divine beings. He is saying, where is Asha, where is Vahumana, where is Shatra? These are the different powers. These are the different strengths. So as I told you before also, and I'll be telling you again and again, there are times when we have to see these divine beings as spiritual beings, and there are times when we'll have to see them as powers, as strengths. So here, I think Zarathustra is asking for both, the divine beings for their help and also the powers, because he'll require them. So he's saying, may they now come to me. And now a very pertinent thing is saying, oh Mazda, recognize me for instruction for the great Maga, Mazoi Magai. Now, we know that during the time of Zarathustra and perhaps even before it, the people who were adept in spiritual power and what they used to perform were mantra prayers and rituals by which they used to get powers which the people would thought were over and above the natural laws. And of course, they were over and above natural laws to a certain extent. So that's why now Zarathustra wants to be a part of that great Magahood. And after being that part of that great Magahood, he will be able to get all the powers he believes. Now this word Maga is very pertinent because throughout in the Iranian history we see that the term Maga has been used for priests of a certain higher caliber. Even in the present times, we refer to some priests as Mobeds. Even your organization is called North American Mobed Council. So the term Mobed, as far as we understand it, is the type of a priest who's adept at performing rituals, higher rituals, and so has a lot of divine strength, spiritual strength, and power. So the word Mobed comes from the Avastan Magaupat or Magupat, and the term Magupat became Mobed. So even in the term Mobed, the idea of a Magav is there. The idea of spiritual power and reaching of spiritual power through priestly practices and rituals is there. And the Greeks coined the term magic after seeing the Magaupats. They call them Magis. We all know about the three Magis who visited infant Christ. So the Greeks referred to these people, they did saw them as distance. As we all know, the Greeks and the Zoroastrians were always at war. They shared several things. So the Greeks were aware of the Magos, and they saw them performing things which they thought were out of the ordinary. And from that was coined the term magic, which means something which is out of the ordinary. Because whatever they saw the Magos or the Magis doing, they called it Magi thing or a magical thing. And even today there is a belief among devout Zoroastrians, some devout Zoroastrians, that these Magos, these beings do stay in a certain places which are not very open, but they do stay in certain places, and one of the places referred to as Demavan. Of course, this is oral tradition more or less. I am just sharing with you an oral tradition which tells us that in certain dimensions we are told that there are certain high levels of uh, souls staying, and one of the places is somewhere around or near the Demavan mountains. And that is why we are told that Zohak was bound by Faridun at Demavan, because Demavan was always under the benign protection of very strong spiritual powers. So all these things seem to be connected. And now Zarathustra has got a lot of confidence. Prophet Zarathustra has got a lot of confidence that now he has the help of the divine beings. He is developing his own power. He knows that now he is accepted for the great revelation. So he's saying that now I have help from every quarter. So now I am in a way ready to serve those belonging to you. I am now ready to start the mission, the divine mission for which I was sent on the earth. So I think this is a chapter which in a way, in a poetic manner, in a dramatic manner, tells us about the divine appointment of the prophet. Sorry, there are some things more. Yeah. So we can call this chapter Zarathustra's divine selection. It is about Zarathustra's coming to this world. The full chapter is about Zarathustra coming to this world, except for the last one, in which it is shown that he is now ready for his mission. Now, what are the lessons for life that we get? In the first stanza, we are told that today we are having the Earth Day, etc. We are doing things for the earth. But over here in the Gathas, we are already told that our actions do have an impact on the earth. Our actions do pain the earth. So our actions should be such that they have to be in consonance with keeping the earth happy. And Avastha and Pelvi have several examples which show that certain type of earth is sad and certain type of earth is happy. Then another thing that we are told right from stanza 2 to 7 is that Ahura Mazda always prefers to confer with his cabinet before taking a decision. So in a way, he's a democratic person. Of course, God is all-knowing, etc. We know all this. But in a way, it is very comforting to know that Ahura Mazda himself also has delegated power in a way to his Amshaspans. And he confers with them. He takes them into confidence. And another important thing, this we discussed last time also, that it is okay to ask help from the divine beings when required. There is nothing wrong in that. Another important lesson we get is that things are, though they may seem at random over here, they are at random to a certain extent and chaotic in this world, because Ahriman is very much at play over here. But Ahura Mazda's things are in order. Ahura Mazda has a plan for the universe right from the beginning to the end. And hence, finally, his will be done. This we are told in the 4th stanza. And in the 9th stanza, we are told that we need to have faith in his decision, in his will. We are also told over here that good people need not worry much. As long as they are good, as long as they are righteous, sooner or later, if they follow a certain path of life, they will be helped and protected. And finally, a very important lesson from this chapter is that Zarathustra was the unique choice of divine ways. His birth was not an accident, and he is the divinely chosen prophet for us. And in the Denkard book 7, certain chapters go very elaborate in the Pelvi book Dinkard to show how each and every small detail of Zarathustra was planned and sent to the earth. So we generally say that Pelvi elaborates the Avastha. So here we have an example of that. Okay, so that's all for today. If we have anything for discussion, we can have it open now.
So the Gathas are written by the prophet themselves. Are they supposed to be written by the prophet themselves, right?
Yeah, in a way, we believe that Gathas were not written at one point of time in his life because they cover the events of his life almost for 20, 25, 30 years as we would know it. So we believe that they were his outpourings. He did not sit and write because, of course, writing as we know it today was not existent at that time. But we believe that Gathas were his outpourings, were his thoughts, were his emotions, were his teachings, which were later on put pen to paper and written down. But for several centuries and millennia, they were orally transmitted as songs, and that's why they are called gathas. So yes, but they are the prayers today which are closest to the prophet.
Okay. Because chapters 8 to 10, it seems like it's not written in first person. It's written, it doesn't seem like Zarathustra was saying this for himself.
Yeah, many people have pointed that out, and at several places we seem that Zarathustra is not the author or the writer of this, but there we are told that if you read poetry in several places, poets also refer to them in third person, like that Zarathustra has referred to himself in third person, because the meter, the language of the gathas are very consistent. So it's not that somebody else has written that stanza and the rest Zarathustra has written. But as I said, it is in a way a poetic license that a poet sometimes addresses himself in third person. So that is what we have to understand these parts, and not as that it has a different authorship,
Okay, thank you.
because the language is very consistent.
I have a question.
Haji.
In 29, we see that Zarathustra has been, so to say, nominated and given the sweetness of language, etc. So he's been given all the knowledge to go and convert people or teach people. But then in the Gathas, we see that he's asking question after question after question, and nobody is answering the questions. How is that?
I mentioned in my talk just now, some time back, that though he was divinely chosen, he was sent to the material world, and thus the rules and the laws of the material world did apply to him. So all his knowledge, all his wisdom, all his power was there in him, but he had to rediscover it. And that is why this instrument of asking questions to yourself and trying to get answers is part of self-understanding and self-realization in Zoroastrian religion. And that is why we revere the Aurim Frashnem, meaning the questions asked to Aura. In Havange, we say Aurim Frashnem Yasamide, means we revere the very question that is asked to Aura Mazda. So that's how we understand that those Zarathustra knew everything. Like in a way, you and me, we also know a lot. We have what we call Asni de Kherad, innate wisdom, which in a way we have to bring out. And there are several ways in which we can do that, of course. But Zarathustra also, as I said, being born as a mortal, had to adhere to the laws which a mortal had to adhere to. And that's why he had to again rediscover everything that was within.
So, but my question is that when he asked the question, who created the earth, he doesn't get an answer. Why does he not get an answer?
Because it is a rhetoric question, because we are talking of poems, and in poems it is a poetic tool to ask rhetoric questions where the questions are not answered but the answers are inherent in the question. So when we say who created the earth, the answer is inherent, who but you. So in Yasna 44 you will see there are an array of questions without answers, but these are rhetoric questions to Aura Mazda, because આપણે પારસીઓ બી as a just in a bit of humor I am saying કે કોના બાપે આ બધું કીધું છે. We say કોને આ બધું કીધું છે. We mean to say કે મેં જ કીધું છે બધું. So in a way this trend of asking a rhetoric question has been there even in the gathas, that who but you, like that but you is not there, but who created the earth, who created the skies, who created the stars, who created love between father and son, who but you. So that's how I understand it.
But there's a word in those verses where he's asking the question. There's a word called kasna. How do you translate that kasna? Because we use that word even today, and kasna means no one, nobody.
No, excuse me, I will not agree with you over there, because kas is interrogative pronoun ko. Who or which, it is not nobody. Nar, na is nar, men. Kasna means which men or who in a way. It is not nobody. Like how we say kemna Mazda. That same tool is used over there, kemna. Kem is again an interrogative pronoun. Na once again means men. So which men? It actually means who. Who or Mazda will protect me? So I feel, of course, you are bound to your means you are bound to have your opinion, but according to me, kasna is who and not nobody.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Sure. My name is Elham. So regarding your words, like you said that Asha and Vahumana, one is like Asha is the action and the plan actually. And Vahuman is kind of like mind. So, and then at the end, Zarathustra is giving sweetness of words. So does it refer kind of to the three main pillars, like good thought, good action, good words, something like that?
It can include that, of course. It is a good thoughts, good words, good deeds are part of sweetness of speech. Here by sweetness of speech, I believe it is more that a power over the tongue whereby you can convince the other person in a nice manner. That is what sweetness of tongue means. And a person needs to have a good thought. A good word is how you speak, and good deed is your final action. So that is always a part of whatever you do with good intention. But it is not easy. Having a good speech is, mind you, not easy when you are surrounded by people who don't believe and don't agree with you, and you are supposed to convince them, convince unbelievers, convince those who don't, who does not want to accept what you are saying, but you are supposed to tell them in a nice, good manner. So that is what I believe the word hudemim, the word for sweetness of speech was hudemim. That is what was meant over there.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Awad, just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good afternoon, everybody. My question is, please, is there
testimony for the God in the Zoroastrian religion. In Arabic, they say ash-shahada, how we say ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah in Islam. But in Zoroastrian, I heard that we don't have this. But yesterday, I saw one Persian book, and in the page of 22, they translated to me. Of course, I can't read Persian. They translate to me that there is a shahada testimony for the God in Zoroastrian, that the Ahura Mazda, the Zoroastrian say that when somebody become Zoroastri, he should say that I promise that I never cheat, and with the good thing, good thought, good work, and also something like this. I never accept another religion also in the.
Ma'am, can you please give a short question? Can you please rephrase the question? But I'm not getting what you are trying to say. Can you please rephrase your question in brief?
Somebody say there is no Shahada testimony in Zoroastrian religion, but somebody say yes, we have Shahada.
Shahadat for what?
How somebody became a Zoroastrian religion, come to the Zoroastrian religion, how the Islam, somebody become Islam, they say ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. But in Zoroastrian, we heard about this, we don't have it. But yesterday they told me, yes, we have it in the Zoroastrian religion, the testament.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't.
Can I try and explain what she's saying? She's saying that just as the Muslims have the Shahadat and say, I will be a Muslim and be faithful to the religion, do we as Zoroastrians have something like that? At first she said that she did not think so, but yesterday she read something that said we too have an affirmation that we say that yes, I accept the religion
Okay, thank you. Thank you for elucidating the question. Yes, we have what we call the Dinno Kalmo, the confession of faith, where we accept Ahura Mazda as the God, Zarathustra as the prophet. It is in the Avestan language, in the Parsi language. In the Jasame Avange Mazda prayer, we say Mazda Yasno Ammi, Mazda Yasno Zarathushtrish. So I think all these are what I think you are asking about, that you are proclaiming yourself to be a Mazda Yasni and a Zoroastrian and following Ahura Mazda and accepting Zarathustra as the prophet and Mazda Yasni as your religion. Mazda Yasni Zarathustra as your religion. So yeah, we do have it, if I understand you correctly, I hope. So, okay, can we call it a day if we don't mind for today?
Yeah, I think Ravi, I will call it a day today, and then we'll see you again after a fortnight.
2 weeks.
Yeah, with Yasnaha 30.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, all. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, done.
Thank you.
Thank you.